seated, we're going to go quickly to the book of 2 Kings chapter 5, and we're going to read a couple of verses, and then we'll see what God will do thereafter. Amen. 2 Kings chapter 5. Now Naaman was commander of the army of the kings of Aram. Are we there? Who was he? He was a commander. He was in charge. He was in charge. It says he was a great man in the sight of the master and highly regarded because through him the Lord had given victory to the army. Victory to Aram. Pastor Matt already set us up for that because victory has a sound. Victory has a sound. And one of the things, Pastor Matthew, that we know by observation, even by practice, is even if and when your team is not winning, if you're a real supporter of that team, you understand that your responsibility while your team is fighting for the victory is to become their cheerleader. So whether we're winning or losing, there ought to be a sound that comes out from those that are supporting whichever team. And so it says he was a strong man, but he had leprosy. How can two things exist at the same time? He was strong, but he had this impediment. He had this thing in his body. And traditionally and culturally, what we know about leprosy is if the disease ever caught hold of your body, you could no longer be among the people. You had to be placed outside of the gate because it could be it's a contagious thing that if you get in the midst and in close proximity of somebody who had the disease, then you could you could potentially also catch what they had. And so here we find this story, the stage set about this man who was strong. And when you check the history of what he had done, the battles that he had led them into, his record was excellent. He had led them into so many victories, but something happened along the way that the one that they were looking to could no longer be among them. He had to be placed outside of the wall. That's just the culture. That's just the expectation of any person who was found to be leprous in those days. And so he was fearless in battle, but sick in body. Fearless in battle, but sick in body. It means that there was something that everybody else knew about and they benefited from, but what hit his body, nobody could deliver him from. And so here we find, and we could be honest with ourselves from time to time, that we can find ourselves in one moment being fearless, and when we're at home when nobody else is there, we find ourselves in a low place, not physical or leprosy, but we're struck by something that has the ability to isolate us from the victory that we just won. And so we're no longer able to fully enjoy the benefits and the fruits of the battles that we just fought. Fearless, but sick. Tells us that two things can exist at the same time. But what we must do is give voice and language to one. One has to be starved if the other is going to thrive. Do you hear me, somebody? Something has to starve in one area of my life. Sometimes, if I want to give and allow momentum to come to another, and so he finds himself in this place where something has to be amplified while something else has to be quieted. Sometimes that could be your thoughts. Sometimes that can be your thoughts. It's not leprosy. What are you entertaining in your mind? But that's not what we're talking about. Verse 2 says, now bands of raiders from Aram had gone out and had taken captive a young girl from Israel. Note that the only reference that this young girl has is that she's a young girl. There's no name. There's no history of who she is. Nobody knows who her parents were. In essence, it was a stranger in this encounter that has no name. And she served Naaman's wife. Verse 3 says, she said to her mistress, if only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. And so let's build this story. This is the strong man who finds himself sick. And there's this girl who has no name, and she's an outsider, but she's an outsider with a possible solution. She is a slave with a possible solution to something that is crucial, critical, something that is deadly. And so she said, hey, I know this thing that my master is dealing with is bigger than what he can handle. There is no cure for it. But I know somebody who is committed to and has submitted themselves to the God of my fathers. And if he can get himself to the prophet, then something could possibly happen. Maybe if he's able to make his way in his condition that naturally should exclude him from the company of anybody else, if he could at least attempt to make his way in the right direction, to the right person, then he would be cured of his leprosy. Naaman went to his master and told him what the girl from Israel had said. By all means, go, the king of Aram replied. I will send a letter to the king of Israel. So Naaman left, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. The letter that he took to the king of Israel read, with this letter I am sending my servant Naaman. I'm sending my servant Naaman to you so that you may cure him of his leprosy. As soon as the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his robes and said, am I God? Can I kill and bring back to life? Why does this fellow send someone to me to be cured of his leprosy? See how he is trying to pick a quarrel with me. Verse 8 says, when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his robes, he sent him this message. Why have you torn your robes? Prematurely. Have the man come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel. Tell your neighbor, sometimes you need a prophet in your ear. Sometimes you need a prophet that will look at your leprosy and not be changed or shaken by what is physically standing before you. Sometimes you need somebody who understands that if I can connect you with the source that I am connected to, then what stands before you with the ability to take you out can become nothing if you have the right person in your ear. Have the man come to me, that he will know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman went with his horses and chariots and stopped at the door of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a message to say to him, go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan. Now let's continue to track this story from one king to another. In essence, it was one kingdom to another because they represented 2 different gods. And one God came to realize that, one king came to realize that the God that I was submitted to could do nothing for this man who has fought for me. So let me, by reference, send him to the God of Israel. And he came to this place and he had an expectation that because he was a strong man, because he had won many battles, that the prophet owed him something, that he should at least come out. And so he easily became offended because the prophet did not even come out to look at him. All he did was send an instruction. He says, go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed. Healed, restored, cleansed. 3 things can be happening at the same time on the heels of his obedience and out of his offense. Because he could have stayed in the place of offense and thought, I am the strong man who has won many battles, and the king sent me. It wasn't anybody. I didn't make this decision to come on my own. I came on the instruction of the king, and I came, and you are not even giving me the attention that I think I deserve. But you have sent an instruction for me, and even in the absence of your presence physically, the instruction still is potent. I said, even in the absence of the prophet, the instructions of the prophet were still potent. And so he said he had to decide whether or not he was going to stay in offense because of a lack of recognition that he was the strong warrior, or he would choose to follow the instructions and the leading of the instructions that came by way of the prophet. He said, go dip 7 times into Jordan. Verse 11 says, but Naaman went away angry and said, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of God, of the Lord his God, wave his hand over the spot and cure me of my leprosy. There's some first responses that you can't trust. I know you're angry, but that first response can't always be trusted. I know you've been in prayer, and sometimes that first response that comes out of your soul cannot be trusted. Because you've got to go back and wait a little longer and listen a little more to see whether what I heard first was with the ear of my soul, or was I hearing by way of the Spirit. And so we've got to check and ensure that those first responses, unless it's a yes to God, that it cannot always be trusted. Sometimes we'll respond in anger. First response. And then we have to come back and say sorry. Verse 12. Are not Abner and Par, the river of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Comparison can keep you out of your deliverance. Could I wash in them and be cleansed? So he turned and went off in rage. Because what we understand about the Jordan River, depending on the season that it was, you could literally step into mud. It was narrower than the 2 options that he wanted to present him with. It was dirtier than the other rivers. There was no running water. It was just mucky. It was just dirty. It was just not the most pleasant thing to be sent into in consideration of who he was naturally. Or any person at all. Now we live in a society where people will pay to go get a mud bath. We're willing to pay to get a mud bath in our day. And in this cultural context, this man says, how dare you, when there are better options for my healing, send me this way? How could you send me in the dirty place for healing when there are clean rivers that I can go into? And even if I'm not healed, at least I'll be clean. But you're sending me to a dirty river to be healed. But if I'm not healed, not only am I still sick, I'm sick and dirty. But I'm willing to take the chance because it's an instruction that comes from the prophet that whether or not the result happens, I'm moving in the way of obedience, because the Bible tells us, believe the word of the prophet and you shall prosper. What if we have not prospered in some areas of our lives because the instruction that God had given us appeared to have been a modern day Jordan? You're sending me to these people. You're sending me to go back to the people that rejected me. You're telling me that after I've been ridiculed by this family that's supposed to love me, I'm supposed to still show and demonstrate the love of Jesus. Yes, that's your Jordan. And if you've got to dip in that dirty place, then that's where the healing is going to be, because it came on the heels of an instruction. He went off with rage. Second response was not good either. Check yourself. Naaman's servant went, verse 13. I promise you we're going to get to what we're really going to talk about today. Naaman's servant, don't tell me that. They tell me I have 32 minutes. And somebody already told me they're hungry, and said person will remain nameless. Naaman's servant went to him and said, my father, if the prophet had told you to go do something, to do some great thing, would you not have done it? The principle is not the place. The principle is in the response. Do you hear me, somebody? The principle that's being tested here is in the response. It had nothing to do with the place. Because just like he sent the instruction to go dip, he could have sent word for him to be healed. So what was being challenged here is a principle. Are you willing and are you going to obey even if and when it does not sound and look and feel the way you think it should? He said, my father, if the prophet had told you to do something, some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then when he tells you wash and be cleansed? So he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times as the man of God had told him. Here's what we need to understand, All Nations Worship Assembly of New York. Nothing happened for him until he humbled himself onto the place of obedience. Nothing changed about his circumstance until he decided that who I was as a person, what I had accomplished, and the places and victories that I had already won were not greater than the God that I wanted to submit and to bring me into healing and deliverance. So he had to make a decision that for something to happen, if something was going to change, then he'd had to change his response. He'd had to change his response. So he did it, and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy. What was established was a miracle zone. What was established was a miracle zone. He wanted a miracle, of course, because nobody wants to be sick. Initially was not willing to step into the zone where the miracle would happen. We have been on the vein of fasting and prayer in obedience. And what we may not have considered was that our response, this is just for those who have been obeying God in this fast. The rest of you can catch up from tomorrow. So what that obedience did was created a zone for miracles. What your obedience can do for you is to create a zone for your miracle. And so if I find myself in this corner today, as long as I am in obedience, where I am has just become a zone for miracles. And if tomorrow I find myself in the middle of this stage, as long as I remain in the place of obedience, then because I shifted, the miracle zone shifted. And if the Lord sends me to another place on another day because I remain in obedience, what just happened is that another miracle zone was created, and it has nothing to do with location. It has more to do with my response than it has to do with my position. Miracle zones are created on the heels of obedience. And if you have found yourself in submission to the order that was established over this house, then what you have actually been doing is creating a continuous zone of miracles for yourself. This radius of obedience over this house, this radius of miracles that is created over this house is not because we're good. this radius, this zone of miracles that has been created over this house, and wherever these people will go, it's not because of any good thing we have done or can do. This zone of miracle is created because somebody has decided to obey God. And you want to get to the miracle, get to the place of obedience. Create a zone wherever you are at. And so miracles happen because the miracle happened because he obeyed. And though he was wealthy and powerful, it could do nothing for his condition. He needed to obey. The miracle zone that was created came also on the heels of Naaman humbling himself. The Jordan was dirty, it appeared muddy, it was shallow, it was unimpressive. It was not the most popular one, but it was for him the place of the miracle. Let's continue to read. Verse 15. Then Naaman and all his attendants went back. The miracle happened. Then Naaman and all his attendants went back to the man of God. He stood before him and said, "Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. So please accept a gift from your servant." The prophet answered, "As surely as the Lord lives, whom I serve, I will not accept a thing." And even though Naaman urged him, he refused. Verse 17 says, "If you will not," said Naaman, "please let me, your servant, be given as much earth or dirt as a pair of mules or donkeys can carry. For your servant will never again make burnt offerings and sacrifices to any other God but the Lord." Today, we want to talk for a few minutes on the subject matter, he did it in the dirt. He did it in the dirt. And the focus of what he did was not even so much the healing of the leprosy, because that's an easy thing for God to do. On the heels of the miracle of his healing, something was established. Naaman said, "Since I can't give you anything, since I can't pay you, let me take some of the dirt from where you're at and take it back to my place." Because what he was also in that moment establishing is, I want to come into covenant with the God that healed me on this ground. I want to come into covenant with the God that's foreign to my people, because the God of my people could do nothing on the ground on which they stood. And so what I'm going to do is pick up some dirt. I want to be able to carry, to transpose, to lift up something from where I saw the Lord healed me, something from where I saw the Lord break through, something from where I saw the miracle happen, and take it back to my people. And what we will do there is ensure that on these grounds that I am bringing, that we will bow to no other God but the God of Israel. And so you look at islands and places that are picking up dirt now in our day and building islands, and they think they're so smart, but this was already something that was established way before. Because what Naaman said is, since I can't give you a gift, give me some of the dirt. Let me take it back. Let me build something in the place that I've been assigned that's not familiar to those people. Dirt, depending on the condition, can indicate that God is establishing or wants to establish something new for you. Brand new opportunities that can be established. The prophetically represents, that's what it prophetically represents, the establishment of something that is absolutely new. New opportunities, new ground. And where there's new ground, there's a greater possibility for growth. There's a greater possibility for the extension of life. Because what that soil will ensure is that the seed has some place to go. Strength and success can't cover where there is a spiritual weakness. Naaman found that out. Even though he had won battles in the natural, there was a weakness on the inside of him that he could not heal for himself. The dirt became the place of his deliverance. And he wanted to ensure that the dirt that he was delivered in, the dirt that he was delivered from, the dirt that he was delivered onto, the dirt that he was delivered by would not remain in that place. So he would no longer have to travel to the dirt. He brought the dirt back with him. I'm creating a miracle zone wherever I am because I'm ensuring that I do not forget the place and the ground where God delivered me from. I will not forget the place and the ground that God broke the chains. I'll not forget the place and the ground that God delivered me. I'll not forget the place and the ground that God snuck that habit out of me and I never had a taste for it again. I'll not forget the place and the ground that God healed me when the doctors could not find language for what I was experiencing. I'll not forget the place and the ground that God provided for me when there was nobody else that I can turn to. I'll not forget the place and the ground that God snatched me out when there was torment and terror all night. I'll not forget the place and the ground of my visitation that ensured that I did not stay in the place of my leprosy, even when it's not physical. God has a track record. This is not the only time that God did something with the dirt. In Genesis chapter 2, when God wanted to make man, he went to the dirt. When God wanted to, in Exodus 8, 16 and 17, when God wanted to prove that he was God to the people, he told Moses to strike the dust, deal with the dirt, and what the dust became gnats, and it was proof that there was a God in Israel, and God has a track record. It continues in John 9, 6 and 7, where Jesus heals the blind man with mud, with the dirt. He picked it up and he spat on it and he played with it a little bit and he placed it on his eye. And again, the dirty thing that God used to deliver the man. And it continues in John 8. And this miracle was not a physical one. This was a miracle of mercy where the woman who was caught in adultery, she was found and they brought her as though she was the only one who was in adultery. And they found Jesus playing in the dirt. They found him playing and writing in the dirty thing, and he didn't even pay them attention. He kept writing in the dirt because he understood that out of this dirty thing can come a miracle. He understood that out of what looks unlikely, out of what looks impossible, I'm creating a zone of miracles because I'm not going to be moved by your expectations. I'm going to stick to what the plan is. He continued to write in the dirt, and then he said something to them. You have brought this woman to me as though you are innocent. And what you are guilty of may not be the same thing, but you're just as guilty. And let me introduce you to the miracle of mercy that says, while by law, custom, and tradition that she should have been stoned, here comes the miracle of mercy that says, hey, I know you want her dead, but if you are without sin, then go ahead and kill her. Miracle of mercy began to happen because Jesus kept his attention on what was happening in the dirt. Now, would you consider what in your life looks dirty right now? What circumstance in your life right now has you in offense because you figured you should have been out of it by now? What circumstance in your life, what dirt in your story right now has you enraged because you think that God should not have allowed you to be in it to begin with? I'm angry because I'm here in the dirt of my circumstance. I'm angry because I'm struggling to do whatever. I'm angry because I'm dealing with these, whatever this looks like for you, and it varies per person, but it's dirty. It's dirty. It doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't smell good. It's dirty. But what was this dirt designed? What miracle was this dirt designed to bring you into? The dirt commemorates and symbolizes a place of covenant. If he has you in the dirt, he wants to form covenant with you. If he has you in the dirt, call your story right now. What's the covenant that God is trying to establish with you? Not before he takes you out of the dirt, but while you are in the dirt. What's the requirement that he is making of us while we are in what looks like a dirty place? Because we have not yet considered that this could also be the place of a miracle. What was established in this dirt is that a man from outside of Israel was able to touch the mercy of Israel's God. It tells me that there is no exclusion to the reach of God to you when you find yourself in a dirty place. And if he can do it for an outsider, how much more will he not do it for you? If God is doing miracles in the dirt for outsiders, how much more will he not do it for his son? If God is doing miracles for the outsider who don't even yet know him, how much more will he not allow his people to come into the miracles of mercy, miracles of deliverance, miracles of healings, miracles of salvation, miracles of restoration, miracles where what was impossible virtually, naturally, economically, physically can begin to manifest. Somebody shout, I'm in my miracle zone. I'm in my miracle zone. I don't care what the dirt looks like right now. I'm in the place of miracles. I don't care how dirty I get in this place. I'm in my place of miracles. I don't care if I've got to dip one time. This is my miracle place. And if he tells me to go back and dip again, then I'm okay with it. I'm in my place of miracles. And what would have happened if Naaman decided that nothing happened after the first dip, and nothing happened after the second, and nothing happened after the third? Because when we read the story, what he would do after every time he came up was to check himself to see if the miracle had yet happened. But he could have decided after 6 times and after 6 dips that nothing changed about my circumstance, that nothing changed about my skin, that nothing changed about what the prophet had said to me, and he could have walked away after the 6th dip. But something happened because he continued to follow the instruction, and the miracle happened on the heels of obedience. That on the 7th time when he went down and he dipped himself in the dirt, that here comes the miracle on the heels of obedience. And I want to submit to us that the miracle had nothing to do with the Jordan River. That was just the instrument. The miracle happened because he obeyed. The miracle happened because he was willing to connect with the dirt. And some of us have tried to reject the dirty parts of our stories because of how we want to be perceived. But I don't care how you want to be perceived. What I want to know is, how bad do you need the miracle? There are some things that will not happen until it gets dirty. When you take a seed and you plant it, that seed does nothing. If you leave the seed in your microwave, nothing happens. You can put the seed on your bedstand, nothing will happen. That seed will not grow, it will not germinate, it will not produce until the seed hits the dirt. But you have despised, and we have despised, the thing that was designed to grow you. Could we be stunted because we don't like the relationship with the dirt? And sometimes the dirt will look like God telling you that you don't have it together when you think you do. Sometimes the dirt will look like God sending you back back into the place of prayer after you thought you just prayed heaven down. Sometimes the dirt will look like you having to humble yourself in front of a people and apologize for something that you don't even want to apologize for. That's the dirt that God wants to dig up on the inside of you. And if I am correct, what God has been using this fast to do with you is to bring up and show you some dirty things about yourself, some dirty things about your character, some dirty things about your response. Why? Because he wants to use it to get you to your next place. Nothing happened until it got in contact with the dirt. Do you mean this thing was not just intended to bring me into shame and embarrassment? Yes, that's what I'm saying to you. That dirt was intended to bring you into healing. But how could you be healed? How could we be healed from something that we won't acknowledge is hurting us? How could we be delivered from something that we won't acknowledge we are bound by? Because we want to be perceived by the offices we sit in. This Naaman was the one who won the battle. Don't you know who I am? How dare you send me to dip in a dirty place? Yeah, what you are and who you are, what you have accomplished means nothing, because that could not heal you. That could not deliver you. That could not bring you out. That cannot give you peace at night. What I want to know is what have we put in the place of and have become an obstacle because of how we want to be perceived, because of who we want to impress. Nothing happened until Naaman got in the dirt. Our existence in Genesis didn't come about until there was agreement in the Godhead, and then they began to play in the dirt. And when the work in the dirt was done, it was only then that he was able to breathe the Ruach of God in the dirty place. And life came to what was dirty. But he could not despise what he had created in the dirt. We can't expect to reap a harvest from what we curse. And so if the Lord would have us in a hard place, and you curse the hard place, how do you expect to be blessed in the place that you have cursed? So Naaman took dirt from Israel because he understood that because I was healed here, I'm going to come into covenant with the God of Israel. I'm going to take this dirt back and introduce my people who may have looked at dirt a different way. And I'll tell them the story of how my encounter with this dirt changed every single thing about me. We can't reject the place that God has had us in. Do you hear me, somebody? You can't reject the place that God has had you in, even if it is a hard place. And I'm not talking about punishment, because in the hard place, he's training us by way of discipline. Naaman took the dirt. 2 Kings 5:17, he took the dirt from Israel back to Syria. He wanted a tangible reminder. He wanted something that would ever be before him, that reminded him that if I ever have to face another thing that will require a miracle, I have a memorial that I can go back to. I have something that when I want to go my own way, I remember what God did with the dirt when I was sick. And every time I am tempted to quit, well, this is the dirt that God delivered me. I'm not going to walk away based on what I feel now, because he did something for me in the dirty place. I'm not going to be seduced out of obedience because it gets hard. He did something for me in the dirt, in the dirty place. So he established a covenant. And so where there is The presence of anything that's dirty is a potential call that God is making to his people. Hey, let's form covenant. Let's form an agreement. Let's come, let's have a pact. Let's make this thing work for us. And so the dirt marked the place where his healing was sealed. But he wanted to remember that I cannot afford to despise the dirty place. I cannot afford to despise the hard place. I cannot afford to despise the thing that will challenge me. I'm going to form covenant right where I find myself. Right in the hard place. Right in the dirty place. Right in the difficult times. Right in the difficult seasons. And I'm going to take it back to my people. But we understand that not all dirt is good dirt. All dirt is not good. All of it will not produce the same kind of results for you. Do you hear me, somebody? And so some things will only happen in certain soils. Some things will only grow in certain places. That's why some people will pick themselves up from one house and take themselves into another house and think that what God did in this house is going to automatically happen in that house when the soil is not the same. I'm going to pick myself up out of this state prematurely and plant myself in another because this place was hard and dirty, and I'm going to think that if I go this place outside of obedience, it is going to work for me. It's dirty here, but it's where God has assigned me. It's difficult here, but it's where God has assigned me, the dirty place. And so some things will only happen in certain soils. Some things will only grow in certain soils. And if you know anything about agriculture, you'll know that, for example, if you have pineapples, you can't put pineapples in mud to grow. You can't soak it in water and expect to produce a harvest. And likewise, if you're going to be a rice farmer, you can't put it in sand and expect it to grow. What if it has not been growing because the ground that you have placed it in was not the right ground? Pineapples will thrive in sand. Rice has to be where there's lots of irrigation, lots of water. And so what will kill a pineapple will grow rice. What will kill or prevent rice from growing will grow a pineapple. But we are oftentimes finding ourselves as pineapples jealous of what's happening in the rice field. And so we become weary and tired of waiting for something to mature when we have placed ourselves in the wrong ground. So I'm saying to us that the right ground matters, and because where God plants you and places you and assigns you, God will allow the right temperature and the right atmosphere to press you the right way so that your potential and your purpose can come out of you, but it has to remain in the right ground. I don't get to decide that I'm picking myself up out of the place of my assignment even when I don't feel like it. Even when it becomes difficult, even when it becomes mucky and dirty, there's some things that will only grow in one soil. So the pressures that comes upon you as whoever you are in this house was designed to bring something out of you that no other house can bring out of you. Stop resisting your pressure. Stop resisting your pressure. The pressure that God is putting on you when nobody else around you is talking about the same kind of pressure could easily pull you out of it, because why is it that God has this requirement of me and Pastor Jonathan can sleep at 3 a.m.? Hello? What's been pushed and pressed out of me at 3 a.m. may be pushed and pressed out of him at 6. The time timing is different, but the pressure is the same. Because it will produce the same outcome that's specific to you. But what is important is that you remain in the right soil. The right soil matters, because there's some things that will only happen under the kind of pressure that you find yourself in right now. I preached a message several years ago about what it takes for oil to come forth and how it has to be crushed. And when you buy a bottle of olive oil that says virgin olive oil, it means that had to be crushed to a different level from a different type of oil. And then there's a 7-phase processing of crushing that olive has to go through if it is to begin to produce that level. If you want it to flow, the greater the flow of the oil, the greater the crushing that it must go through. And so if God has you in a place of beating and crushing and has you in a soil that you have to literally fight to stay connected to him, because everything around you looks as though it was designed to choke the life out of you, I've got to remind myself, and you've got to remind yourself, that this is the soil that God has designed for me for this season. This is the ground that God has designed for me to be planted in, so that what must come out of me will come out because I remain in the right soil. He did it in the dirt. The dirt is not a place of comfort. The dirt is not a place of relaxation. The dirt is not even a place of your preference, because if we were to be honest, nobody really wants to be in the dirt. The only kind of person or animal I know that loves the dirt is a pig. The only person that loves the dirt is the pig. And you'll take and that's potentially necessary because of what the pig needs. And so even if you take the pig out of the dirt, the pig will find its way back into the dirt, because he understands the environment in which he needs to do whatever it is that mud and that dirt will do for that pig. Well, what is the environment that you need to grow and to mature right now? Because if it's easy, we become complacent. When it's light, we become complacent with it and we take it for granted. But the moment we find ourselves under pressure, it's a reminder that while I'm in this dirty place, I've got to remember the God of my covenant. Why? Because I'm not going to lose my mind in the dirty place. I'm going to let the dirt do its work, but I'm going to stay in position. The dirt is not a place of comfort. And we have despised, so many of us that have despised the discomfort that God has had us in, what we have actually been doing is prolonging our growth. We've been prolonging we've been prolonging our state where we have not been able to make progress at the level God wants us to make progress at, because we're still cursing the thing that God has designed to use us to use to get us out. We're in elongated grief because we won't allow that thing to have its way and let it run its course. You know, there's some things that the doctors will tell you, you've just got to let it run its course in your body. Let that thing work itself out in you, and at the end of the process you're going to be good as new. But you've got to let that thing run its course. When you find yourself in the dirt, when you find in the place of yourself in the place of dis-ease and discomfort, we've got to ensure that we are not picking ourselves up from the ground, the place of covenant with God, and trying to put ourselves somewhere else that does not have the capacity to nurture us, does not have the capacity to mature you. So there are two types of seeds, two types of soils that I'm going to talk to us about, and then I'll be done. Amen? Amen. Luke 8, 4 and 5. He did it in the dirt. 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 So that you won't look at hardships the same way again. It's an invitation to covenant. Luke 8, 4 through 15. I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to you just take that reference. It's a parable, we know it. The condition of the soil determines how the seed grows. The condition of the soil determines how the seed grows. Seed will always represent, whenever we, in our context, we're not now talking about a physical seed. We're talking about the word of the Lord. The seed, the engrafted word of the Lord, will only grow and it will mature depending on the ground that it finds itself in. And so you hear the word of the Lord, it lands on what is the condition of the soil of your heart. The soil of your heart. The condition of the heart determines how we respond to God. The condition of our heart will always determine how we respond to God, because his instructions are not always going to be easy. But if my heart is postured correctly, then I get the right response. Then he gets the right response out of me. And so the issue is never with the seed. Do you hear me, somebody? The issue is never with the seed, because the power is just as much in the seed when it's in the packet at Home Depot as it is when you put it in your car, you take it home. But nothing happens with the potential of the seed until it hits the ground. But not just hitting any ground, it has to be the right ground if that thing is to produce the right kind of harvest in the life of the believer. And so the condition of the heart determines how we respond to the word of the Lord over our lives. The issue, like I said, is never with the seed. It is genetically powerful. Just like the word of the Lord over your life. It is naturally powerful. And that's why transplants don't always work. That's why transplants don't always work, because the condition of the soil has to be right. The parable talks about the seed that falls on the path, and the seed that falls on the rock, and then the seed that falls in the soil that's crowded, because there are other things that are competing for that soil. There are other things that are trying to grow at the same time as the seed. There are other opinions that are trying to grow while God is trying to bring us into instructions. There are other things that are competing for our attention while God is wanting us to turn our plates down. There are other things that are competing for our time when God is making a requirement of us. And they are oftentimes legitimate things. Do you hear me, somebody? Some of it is legitimate. Some of our excuses for disobedience are legitimate, but they're disobedience. Legitimate. Well, I have to do the groceries, or I have to do the laundry. Absolutely. But when he makes a requirement of us, it could also be an invitation for discipline. Well, you should have done that yesterday, because I had this assignment for you today. Do you hear me, somebody? And so there's a seed that falls on the path and heart, representing the hearts that are hard. And so we hear the word, but we're not doers of the word. We're unresponsive. We're resistant. Well, God said that to him. He didn't say that to me. Well, it's a corporate word over the house. And you don't have to feel it in your emotions to obey. If the word of the house is to fast, then that's the expectation. Do you hear me, somebody? We don't get to pick and choose what we'll obey and what we will not. Well, you can, but then that determines the results that we get out of it. Seed that falls on the path, resistant, unresponsive, and God is screaming, but nobody is hearing, because it's not sounding like your emotions, because it's not sounding like your preference, because it's not sounding like your comfort. So you think God is speaking to everybody else except you. He's talking to you. So check the soil of our hearts. And there are those that will fall on the rock, that will produce nothing. Surface hits the ground and it produces nothing in the life of the believer. Those who are able to, when hardship or difficulties, I can no longer trust God because He allowed me to be in a hard place. What kind of soil does that represent? What kind of soil does that speak to a condition of your heart? And there are those that will fall. All of this is in the parable. The seed that falls in the crowded soil. It looks like indecision. Crowded soil. I have options and I can't decide which way I want to go. But the Bible tells us that a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. It looks like something is competing for your time and ultimately your obedience divided. And sometimes the division is not even with you, the person that sits next to you. The division is what's happening in your mind. The battle that nobody can see. Today I want to obey God and tomorrow I'm angry at God. And it is okay to acknowledge those emotions, but it's not okay to stay in the place of that emotion. It is the indecision whether or not I want to follow purpose or I want to be comfortable. It's the indecision that says, because I feel good today and I'm acknowledged today, I'm going to show up. And if tomorrow they don't, then I'm staying away. It is the indecision in the heart that keeps us out of purpose, that keeps us delayed, that keeps us out of time and out of sync. It happens in the dirt. It is the heart that's not in competition with anybody else. It's the heart that's not in competition with previous seasons. Because I don't owe the last season anything other than thank you. You don't owe the last season anything other than thank you. Whether that thing beat you down, it caused you to grow, thank you. Whether it caused you tears, thank you. It caused you rejection, thank you. It caused you abandonment, thank you. Because I came to understand that even in the place of the rejection and whatever else that was associated with the last, brought me into covenant. It brought me into an awareness. And because I am not in competition with you or the last season, it becomes easier for me to celebrate you. I don't have to have the language for it. But what I can do is ahead of time congratulate you for whatever it is that God is doing in your season. I don't even want to know the details of it, but congratulations. 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 I don't know what God is doing for you, but congratulations. You're in the dirt, but God is doing something. Congratulations. If you stay there long enough, because He's working the right soil out of you and in you, He is pulling His fingers in that thing to ensure that the impediments of your story that is now in the dirt and the soil that you find yourself in, it can be sifted and sorted out. Congratulations. I don't know what it is that He's doing, but we're not in a competition. I'm not trying to be you. I'm in a place of covenant with God. I don't want to be you because I may crumble under the warfare that's associated with the name Tashira Ayers. And I don't want to be that. I may crumble under the warfare that's associated with the name Matthew Louis. Call you. And that is so. I may crumble under the warfare and the pressure that's associated with the name and the story that is Matthew Adams. I may crumble under the pressure and the demands that's associated with the name and the ministry that is a Mother Millie. That I'm not in competition and I don't want it. I don't want to stand and sit in what Pastor Rich stands and sits in, because what he may have been able to fight through may kill me. And so congratulations, because you are surviving every single thing, that the dirt that was thrown on you and the dirt that you have been placed in by God's design. I said by God's design. I'm not trying to be you. I don't want to be Naaman because leprosy may make me curse God. I don't want to be him because there may not be a little Israelite girl who knows a prophet. And I may die in a low place of depression because that was not designed to be my story. My dirt may be different. My soil may be different. And so I can't buy into somebody else's story and not have the same way out as they do. There are things that people have themselves over that you have lived through. And you still are dissatisfied with your life. You still are dissatisfied and angry at the story that God has chosen for you. You want the easy way out. But the easy way out may lead you to destruction. I'm covenanting with the God that delivered me in the dirt. What are we talking about? He did it in the dirt. God is looking for a people whose hearts, the soul of their hearts, are open to receive everything that he wants to give. He's looking for somebody whose heart can be trusted. The evidence of the good soil is discipline. The evidence of good soil is discipline. Why? Because it holds the DNA. What that seed is and represents is DNA. And so that's why when you plant a mango seed, you get a mango tree. And it produces mangoes. Because the DNA is in the seed. And the seed requires a particular soil for that mango to grow and that tree to produce. And that tree will produce fruits. And those fruits will produce seeds. And those seeds will produce more trees. And before you know it, you have an orchard of obedience. Because the DNA that was locked up in the seed was placed in the right ground. And because it was placed in the right ground, it no longer remained potential. Hear me, all nations. We have been living, or too many of us, not all of us, have been living at the realm of potential. And potential does nothing for you if you don't go to work. The potential of a seed means nothing to a family that is hungry. The potential of obedience means nothing to a people who are waiting to hear your voice so that they can be delivered. The potential that God has placed in you, like he did with Jeremiah, it says, before I formed you, I knew you. I put this thing in you, and the only way it's going to come out is if you are in the right soil. Is if you stop resisting the dirt. But that thing means nothing if you don't go to work at it. Deliverance workers that won't study deliverance. Intercessors that won't intercede. Preachers that won't preach. Singers that won't sing. Dancers that won't dance. Evangelists that won't share the gospel of Jesus Christ. Living at the realm of potential, but it produces no results. But today God calls us to the place of covenant with the dirt that he has allowed and has placed you into, because like any good farmer, like any good investor, they're never satisfied with what this seed is. I want to see what this seed will produce for me. I want to see what my obedience will produce for me. What if my obedience will be what will deliver an entire generation of people? What if my family is waiting for me to begin to obey God, but they don't yet have language so that they can tell me, get yourself up and find your place find yourself in the place that God has called you to? What if the deliverance of a nation that injustice, because the Bible tells us, he said there was no truth was missing, and there was no justice because there was no intercessor. What if the justice that America needs is waiting on those that that God has called to pray, to move from the place of potential and into the place of obedience. That's what the word of the Lord says. Truth is missing. And there is no justice because there was no intercessor. Intercessors who live at potential and out of covenant because we prefer comfort. Several years ago, the Lord, how many of you remember, Apostle preached a message called, it's the closet accounts. It was a Tuesday night, more than 5 years ago, about 5 years ago. I think it was the 16th or 17th of March, whatever it was around there. And the only reason I remember it was because God, I felt like God was punching me in the gut. And immediately called me into the place of prayer, back into the place of prayer at 5 a.m. every Wednesday morning from that day. And I had several people join me in prayer. And pandemic was over in the sense that people were moving back to their regular lives. But God's instruction still remained. And I became frustrated at the fact, I'm like, well, let me just not pray like this anymore because the people are not responding. And God said to me, I did not call them to it, I called you. So whether or not they show up, my instruction has not changed. And so I can't measure my obedience based on the response of men. And if his assignment, his mandate, his call to you is whatever it is, you cannot afford to measure how you respond based on how the person next to you is responding. I'm in covenant with the God who found me in the dirt. So there's the soil that's necessary for the heart. But there's also a soil that's necessary for vision to happen, for vision to come to pass, for it to grow. Habakkuk 2, could we put that up? Habakkuk 2, verse 2 and 3. Could we find that? Because there's some things that will only flourish in some environments, in some soils. Habakkuk 2, verse 2 and 3. We're almost there, I promise you. Habakkuk 2, could we get that up, please? Habakkuk 2, 2 and 3. And a couple of things we need to understand, and then we'll move from there. Because how many of you know that vision is a seed? And if God allows you to see it, he has an expectation of you to respond to it. Write the vision and make it plain. Let it ever be before you that even when nobody else can see, you are reminded that God put this thing on the inside of me, and because he did, he has a requirement of me. Give me my phone, I'll pull it up myself. You don't have to yell. Then the Lord replied, write down the revelation. Write down the vision. Revelation is necessary where there is darkness. Revelation is necessary where truth is missing. Revelation is necessary where there is some degree of uncertainty. And so when I don't know what God will bring me into is revelation, so that I don't live in ignorance beyond the point of revelation. I said that we don't live in ignorance beyond the point of revelation. When revelation comes, we are to respond. We stay in ignorance when we receive revelation and do nothing with it. So our problem is not the absence of revelation. Our issue can very well be we have not yet done anything with what God has allowed us to see. The revelation that God has allowed us to have, we may not have done anything with it yet. And so we stay in darkness longer than we need to. So he says, just so you don't forget, write it. That's why we take notes. He says, Then the Lord replied, this is not anybody else but the Lord speaking. The Lord replied, write down the revelation or the vision and make it plain on the tablets, so that not only you will be reminded, that every single person that comes into contact with you will know what it is that guides your life. We'll know what it is that empowers and propels you. And sometimes people will not always understand. If you look at a ship, you don't see the propellers under the water, but you know that thing is moving. Because somebody had a vision of how the ship would move from this point to that. And they wrote the vision, came up potentially with a formula, and then they began to work at that formula to ensure that the vision did not just remain in the place of conception and nothing happened with it. And make it plain on the tablet so that a herald may run with it. Verse 3. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. He'll reveal it to you now. Ensure the soul that's necessary for that revelation to come to fruition is right, or the dirt that is necessary is in place. And then when the time is right, then that thing will come to life. The Bible tells us that he makes everything beautiful in its time. So if it's not yet beautiful, if the circumstances are not yet beautiful, if the situation is not yet beautiful, if the response on the job is not yet beautiful, if the response in the business is not yet beautiful, because his word declares that until the time is right, it will look like mud. Take me back to Habakkuk. Let's continue reading it. That's why you can't despise the dirt. Something is growing under that dirt. Something is growing under that pain. Something is growing under that hurt. If you manage it well, that thing will produce something for you. It says, for the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end. It speaks of the completion. The dirt may represent where you find yourself at right now, but where you find yourself now is not the end. It's just a part of the story that gets you to the end. That's why you can't curse the place that you're at right now, because God is using where you're at right now in covenant to get you to the end. But if you curse the now, what happens to the then? It speaks of the end and will not prove false. There shall surely be a performance. It says, though it linger, wait for it. Wait for it. It will certainly come and will not be delayed. Tell somebody, vision takes time. Tell yourself, vision takes time. You're in a race against your own timetable. You've got to slow down. Vision takes time. You're in a race against this idea that you have for your life, but you've got to slow down. Vision takes time. And vision is a seed. And depending on the kind of seed that vision is, it will require a certain amount of time. There's some trees, there's some genes of the coconut that doesn't mature until 10 years. It takes time. An acknowledgement of trust in your ability to make good on the revelation of the Lord. God, I don't understand what you're doing, but I trust you. This thing is dirty and I don't have language for it, but I trust you. I can't see what tomorrow is, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I understand that if you have me in this dirty place, then there's something that you're working out in me that I will need, that I don't yet know that I'll need. Seeds will not grow in every soil, and in like manner, vision does not blossom and thrive on any heart, in any heart. It requires a particular response and environment. And so when you understand that, you will look at your life and look at the people that left you differently. when you understand that, you look at your life and your story, and you look at those who walked away and only because of a misalignment, and not think that you were out of God's timing. The soil may not have been what was right for the vision that God has put on the inside of you to come to pass. Because what if you're crying over somebody that was secretly competing with you? What if you were crying over something that was somebody who was like Joseph's brothers, who were envious of the vision, who were jealous of the vision, who thought that, hey, because I'm older than you, I should have more. But the vision that God had given to Joseph could be dangerous if any of them walked in it, because of the condition of their hearts. What if you're crying over something that was secretly sabotaging you? What if you're angry at God for removing somebody from your life and your story that would have led you down your death path? What if you're still broken up over a relationship that you thought was going to end in a marriage, and you did not know that what God was delivering you from was a potential abuser? What if you were crying over something that some relationship that person had in their genetic makeup, a trait that would cause your child to live in a life of misery and sickness? What if you are crying over something that God looked down in history? His history, it's not yours, it's his. He looked down ahead of time and said, I'm not going to allow my daughter, I'm not going to allow my son to enter into covenant with something that's going to kill them because it makes them feel good now. So we've got to be careful of instant gratification. I know you want your flesh to feel good. I know you want your body to feel good. Who doesn't want to be romanced? Or who doesn't want to have somebody to rub their feet after a hard day, or pour your own tea? You don't have to open your own door. You don't have to pay your own bills. But let it not be at the expense of going to bed with the enemy. Let it not be at the expense of entering into covenant with somebody who is not submitted to the God of Israel. Because there was a little girl who found herself in the camp of the enemy as a slave, but she had access, relationship, and knowledge to somebody who could deliver Naaman by way of a mercy miracle. Because not everybody who is sick is physical. Not every sickness is physical. Not every disease can be brought up on an MRI. Not every ailment can be tracked by a doctor. There's some things that your family you were born into by way of a DNA. But God has you in the mud right now because He wants to form something else out of you. But you want to get yourself, and we find ourselves, I'll include myself there, because we want to get out of it because it's dirty and it's painful. But what is that thing preserving you from? Be careful that you don't enter into covenants in dirt and don't keep them when He brings you out. In these days of fasting and prayer, be careful that you don't enter into covenant and then when it's done, you walk away and forget. Write the vision down and make it plain so that when I feel good, I'm reminded. When I don't feel good, I'm reminded, because his assignment does not change based on my feelings. Some hearts are fighting, and we've got to be careful that we don't find ourselves in this place fighting for apologies from people who hurt you in a former place and in a former season, but you're miserable now because you won't let go of what happened in the dirty place. There are people who are fighting for apologies that will never come, and you have surrendered your power to a previous season. You have surrendered and you formed definitions about yourself in a dirty place when God has only designed the dirty place to mature you and not to define you. Take your power back. take your power back. Take the power from the last season back. Take the power back from your last offense. You have a vision to grow. And you can't remain and you can't stay angry if you're going to grow the vision. You can't grow the vision and be offended simultaneously. You've got to let go of one if the other is going to mature. Vision requires faith to grow it. The Bible tells us the just shall live by faith. And that which is not of faith is sin. So you mean God allowed this dirt and this hardship to mature me in faith? And not because he's angry with me? Absolutely yes. It's time to take your power back. What if it's not growing because you're undecided about its reality? We've got to be careful that we don't allow our vision to fall on dirt that's rocky. What that will look like is or resistance to change. It's hard. But if you resist it, what is it saying about your heart's condition? We find ourselves where we look at correction as an exit strategy rather than an invitation to grow. Rocky hearts. How can God trust you with vision coming to maturity when he can't correct us? It's in the DNA. The power is in the seed. But the soil is important. The soil of your heart. The soil that is vision. That is absolutely necessary to grow this thing. Would you jump to your feet all over this room? Vision will flourish in obedience. Deliverance is also wrapped up in obedience. It encompasses preparation and a willingness to persevere. Naaman had to do that once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6. What if you're currently on your 7th dip in the dirt? What if this is your 7th dip in the dirt? And when you come up the next time, you're coming up healed and restored.